I just want to make sure you can see my screen. Okay, so, let's say we want to scrape a website. So for instance, here's, if we put in the Beatles, then here's the Wikipedia page, right? And you can imagine, this could be, if it was just the Beatles that we're scraping data off of, we could probably just do this by hand. But you can imagine that, maybe there's a number of bands that we want to scrape data about. One of the groups, for the internship, they'll be probably scraping data for a number of legislative articles. So when there's a ton of this information, right, we want a way to automate this. So to do something like that, let me show you. Let's see if I can just do it. So the first thing we do is just import the request library. All right. So remember, the request library is how we're going to make HTTP requests, right? So now we do request.get. Just put in the URL that we want to make a request to. Over here, right? And that's going to give us back a response. 200 means that we're pretty good. Previously, right, what we were doing was we were requesting JSON, right? So remember before, what we did was have this response.json parentheses. In this case, because we're hitting HTML, because we're hitting a web page, right, really what we're getting back is text. So this is just using our same old request library. The only thing different is because we are, getting back HTML instead of JSON, we're doing response.text here. Notice what this gives us back, right? It's just a string, One thing that's going to be really annoying is now if we want to find, really be able to search this string, right? That's very hard to do just as a string, right? We split it and all that stuff. But the beautiful soup library will make and I'll show you in a second, will make this a lot easier. So what's this called? Import, I think it's from BS4. So the name of the library is Beautiful Soup, and you just do I always say it in the reading, but you just do pip install Beautiful Soup. Let's actually look. It is pip install BS4. All right. And then this -- quiet is just there so that in the Jupyter notebook, you see this? It's not showing you all the output. That's all this -- quiet is about. Okay. But if you want to install it, you just do pip install or pip3 install BS4. And then the next thing we do is this line, right? So we install Beautiful Soup, which we call BS4. And then we are importing the Beautiful Soup. This is a class, right? We see the capitals. So we're importing the Beautiful Soup class, and we are referencing it as the variable BS, right? Or as the alias BS. Okay. So we have this BS alias. So all we did so far is we're importing this Beautiful Soup class. And then the next thing we'll do is we're just going to pass our response.text. Let's see if we do this here. Say text equals response.text just so we can see it. All right, so this is all our text. We're going to pass that text into the Beautiful Soup module. And when we do, notice that there are not these quotation marks around this anymore. This is actually an instance of a Beautiful Soup object, right? So this is its own class. So let's call this Beatles HTML. All right. And if we want to explore this thing, you can see it comes with these various methods. The most important one that we'll use is this find all one. Okay. So for instance, just to show you quickly, let's say that we want to find all the H1 tags, right? We have this Wikipedia article. If we do inspect, right, this is probably the typical workflow that I'd recommend is, go to the web page, kind of see all right, what do I want to get here? There are, these divs, the H1 tags, if you remember from HTML, right, this generally has the most important text on the page, right? So here's an H1 tag. And remember that if we highlight over it, we should be able to see it somewhere. There it is. Okay. So you can kind of like, if you want to pull something from the page, you can also just like right click it, click on inspect, and then it will take us, right, to that corresponding HTML. And now it's like our next task is find, pull this out in code here. Why? Because, maybe we want to get the text here, maybe we want to get this content right here, maybe we want to actually get the image, right? And we can store that. So there's like various pieces of data that we can now use to automatically pull. So let's start with the H1. So I'll just click inspect. That's not exactly what I want. Let's see this. All right, so there is this span. The span is inside of our H1. Let's start. So we have this H1. If I want to find all the H1s on the page, I'll just do find all, and then I believe H1. You see this? This is now, it looks like there's only one H1 on the page. It's returning it in a list to me, right? If I just did, yeah, that's good enough. If you just wanted to know there's only going to be one on the page, you can just also use the find method. So this only returns like one instance. If you do find all, it returns a list of instances, right? Which is useful if you have like H2s. Here's all the H2s on the page. This is maybe more interesting, right? We can kind of perhaps go through each of these sections. So let's try to do that. So here's my H2s. This is a list of these like beautiful soup objects. So I can select, right, the first one, just like a normal list, right? And then from here, let's call this my first H2. And then from here, we can get attributes of this, all right? So for instance, if I want the text, you see that? We get the text. Right, so here I can get the inner text. Something that's very useful is any of these attributes you can access just as if they were a dictionary, right? So that means if I want to get ID, I can do square brackets, string ID. Okay? So let's say, so what do we do so far, right? We did this, we took our beautiful soup, we took our text that we got from this response, we wrapped that in a beautiful soup object. Then we called the find all method, specifying H2 to find all the H2s. Then from there we saw, okay, if we like select one of these, we can pull out either like the text or really any of these attributes, right? So for instance, it looks like all of them but the first one and the last one have a class. The class is the same. They all have an ID though, except for the last one. So let's try that. Let's select all but the last one, right? And then let's say for H2 in all but the last H2s, let's pull out the H2, ID. And it breaks. Key error ID. This might be, it's probably one of them does not have an ID. Let's see. It looks like they do.
The last one doesn't.
Right, but we selected all but the last one, right? Let's just try it. This is all but last H2. I'll say almost all H2s. Right, and then we should be able to get 4 H2 and these H2. Yeah, alright, well, we almost did it, guys. But that's the idea, right? Let's just get like the second or third one. Oh, look at this. So it looks like, this is kind of interesting. Okay, so it looks like the H2 itself doesn't have the ID. It's the span inside of it that does. All right? Okay, so this brings up a cool thing. So let's just review. Like if I had the first one, this one does have an ID. I can take this first one, and then from there pull out the ID. Once I have, let's go to the second H2. Okay. Now, if I want to get this span, right, this could be kind of hard to do. Because, for instance, if I start from this Beatles HTML thing and just want to find, like, all the spans, that's pretty hard to do, Like, there's a ton of spans on the page. So maybe I would get, like, more specific, which is what I can do is I can, specify, hey, I want this attribute to, like, match, all right? So maybe I want to say find all the H2s where the ID matches history. Let's see if this works. So now, right, we've narrowed that down. So we just saw like a way that we can be more specific with the find all, which is the first argument, I'm passing through like the tag, right, what kind of HTML element it is. And then the second argument, I'm matching based on the attribute, right? So here I'm doing ID history to be really specific. If I want to be like more general, right, I could do like class is this MW headline. Right, so here we're getting all those spans that match this MW headline. Like for instance, if I wanted to find all of the, it seems like headlines on the page, right? Now, in this case, what I think I'd like to do is, here's almost all the H2s. Let's go back to here. And then what we can do is, for each of these, let's actually remove the first one as well. So now for each of these, if we select this one right here, we can then say, I believe, find the span. You see that? So what we're doing, this is really useful, right? Because what we're doing is we can go through each, once we select, like we find this H2, once we select it, then we can call find again. And this time it's only searching on the selected piece of HTML, right? So what are we going to do? Well, we start with each of these H2s. For H2 and almost all the H2s, right, we will do H2.find the span. So this is going to pull out the related span, I believe, from each of these things. You see that? And then from there, we should be able to pull out this one attribute of ID or text, right, whatever we want. Okay, and now something like this works. All right. So this is, I know this is a little roundabout, but this is essentially all I wanted to cover with Beautiful Soup. Let's do this again. So essentially what we did was we imported requests, and then we did requests.get the URL. Then we call this our response. Take the response.text, which is just the text of the HTML. And then we have to say, from BS4, import beautiful soup as BS, right? So then now we have to turn this string into a beautiful soup object. And we can call this whatever, like our Beatles HTML. And then the next thing you want to do, right, is basically get pretty narrow into what you need to find. So for instance, if we want to find this picture, I would probably inspect it, look for an image, and I might also, to avoid finding all the images on the page, I might look to see, like, is there something else I can find? For instance, maybe I want to go to the info box, like that looks pretty relevant, and then from there, find the image. So let's do that. So we'll do Beatles HTML.find, and let's see if we can just find something, a TD with the class of info box image. So this is a TD, and we need this to wrap this in a dictionary to specify, hey, I just want this one. All right. So now that we have that, now that we kind of found this outer HTML, then we can find the image inside of it, right? So we do .find, the image, and now we have the image, right? So we kind of saw we can use this find or find all to specify the tag followed by the relevant attributes. And then once you have that, you can dig in further, all right? And then finally we saw if we use something like find all, right? And then we see, what did we want? I guess it was these kind of things, perhaps. The spans, yeah. Li, let's just see what I did previously. Oh, we found the H2s, right? Let's just see that. Found all the H2s, and then from there, we can dig into each one of them and pull out the attribute that we want. So we'll just take one, we'll skip the first one, because there's no content there. And we'll skip the last one. And this is almost all H2s. You can say for H2 and almost all H2s. Let's take the H2, find the related span, I think, and then from there, pull out the attribute, right, of the ID of history. Okay. So this is how you can really dig into a website, right? Again, like what I recommend doing is look at the part of the website that you're interested in. Like if you want, this thing, and do inspect, and then try to find okay, if you find all the MW headlines, maybe this is hard, but maybe you can either select one of them from the list, or perhaps we can, maybe there's some sort of outer HTML, like I would maybe see what is this thing, and then from this box here, then select this first kind of element, right? So you kind of think about how the HTML is organized. You can view it, I'm guessing, by inspecting it. Let's see. Sorry about that. There you go. Right, so we can kind of see this. This is this history thing. Then here's this table. Here's a span. It looks like we end a div right here, and then we have an H3, right? So you might want to look for the H3s, or you may somehow want to try to find the H3s, that are associated with this HTML, if there is some sort of demarcator here. All right. It takes some time. Like scraping is, takes a bit of creativity and messiness, but try. You can get. There is a lot of information you can only get from scraping, and there are businesses that are just all they are scrapers, some very valuable businesses. All right, questions kind of about this, right? There's obviously a reading to go along with this, and you can see what we've used. Cool. And also, Abhinav is going to be helping out today with TAing. All right. So let's call this method. So if we call this method for get job cards, the first thing that happens is it's going to call this method get Indeed HTML, right? It's going to take the position like data engineer, and that will be the keyword argument. Take the location, right? It's just taking these arguments, passing them through. And then this method, get Indeed HTML, right? This makes a request, and with these parameters, right? So this is how we kind of specify what types of jobs we want to get back. All right, and these parameters are going to correspond. If you go to Indeed.com, you can see these parameters correspond to this stuff right here, right? The question mark, right? These are our query parameters. Question mark Q equals and L equals, right? L is the location. So we can kind of see that, right? The Q is the position that I'm querying, and the L, right, is the location. You see that? So now, right, what we need to do next is we want to get essentially this list of cards. All right? So let's put a breakpoint here. And this should, at this point, all we're doing is we're getting back the text, response.text. So this is the text, this whole thing. And we want to start to narrow it down, all right? So that eventually we can just get these cards. So let's run this thing. So do Python 3-i console. And you can see this is, let's go to my console. My console is calling this get job cards function. And the get jobs cards function, right, is this function right here, which is making the request, then taking that HTML, passing it into a beautiful soup object, and now we have this soup thing. Okay? So if we type in soup, this is like our whole web page. So what we want to do is we want to start just getting this stuff here. There's different techniques. You know, you can like inspect one of these cards, take a look. You see this part right here is like an A tag. It's hard to, you know, like select based, like I can't really select something that just has this ID because, well, this ID is probably unique to this particular card. I want to get this whole list. So how do I do that? Well, at this point, I'll like go, you know, make this broader. Looks like I'm still just talking about this one card. I want to get all of them. This is a job scene beacon. That probably means like have I, you know, as a user visited this job before. This is starting to look good, right? Like if you look at this text, even the class, it says job search results list, which means probably it like contains the whole list. And then they're here, maybe if you want to go even broader, you can do this mosaic thing. Mosaic provider job cards also seems promising, right? I'll do this one because it's a little bit more, you know, a little bit closer to my LIs, right? So I have this UL, which contains the whole list, and then I have an LI, which is each one of these, right? So let's go for this. So we'll do, so here's soup, and I'll do soup.find, because I just want to get this parent container first. So find the UL, and then that has a class of this, of job search results list. All right, and now what should this return? This should return my UL, right? Because it's one large list. You know, and so from here, what I want to do is I want to break this thing down into each one of these cards. So one easy way maybe to do this is just like select the LI. I know, like, I think the lab essentially implied to select an A tag. You can see this A tag down here. This does have a lot of, like, it feels like pretty good data here. You know, like, here's the ID. I guess I just like these attributes pretty good. Underneath, here's the title.
Oh.
I feel like we made a connection. And then we can do a little bit. Here's this result content TR. The TD is also pretty good, right? Like, let's see, here's this table class. It's like this has a lot of good data right here. I think we might have wanted the salary. Let's take a look at this, where it also has like the salary information. So let's just open it up, go a little bit more. Yeah, this looks pretty good, right? So this like TD of class result content seems to have a lot of the information we're looking for, right? The location, the company, the title, the salary, whether it's contract or not. So here's what we'll do. Now that we have this UL that contains this whole parent element, from there what we want to do is find all of the TD elements. So this should return a list of all of the TDs that have a class of result content. And this I'm going to call my TDs, I think, right? Yeah, TDs. And let's just look at one of them. So yeah, so this result content, if you look at it from here, let's just try to get some different things. Like for instance, what if I want to get the, let's see if we can get the company. All right. So let's look at the HTML first. And then here's this title data. Here's the A tag. Let's go up a little bit broader, Here's my result content. So somewhere in here should be the company. Title A. Let's open up this A. Here's this title data engineer. Here, look, this looks good. It's down here. So here we see the company location. This has a company name. And then here we have this ratings display. So 3.8. And then here we have this company location. So this is a div with a class of company location. Right? So let's try to get this thing. So where are we? Right now we're on this TDs, bracket 0. I'll just call this first TD. Sorry about that. Okay, so I have this first TD. And now from this parent element, that's like this thing right here, I want to find .find the div with a class of company location. And we'll see if that works. Now, not all these, like, they might not work perfectly. There we go, but that does work. Right, it's the reason why I wasn't totally sure is because, you know, these don't line up. Like the one I'm looking at here isn't necessarily the one that when I made the request we got, right? So maybe not every single card has a company location, but it looks like a lot of them do. All right, so from here I have the whole, you know, content, but what I want to get is just the text inside here. So I'm getting closer, and then I just call .text, and now I have my data. All right. So that's one. Let's do one more. So here we'll do. Let's try to get the company, the actual company name. So what is this? This is a span with a class of company name, right? So I'm starting from my first TD, and we'll do again .find a span with a class, sorry about that, of, I think it's camel case, company name camel case, right? And again, .text. So now we basically want to do this for all of them, right? We did it for one, now we just use our technique of do it for all. So we have our TDs. We say, you know, for TD in our list of TDs, just kind of do this thing, .find, you know, let's see if we can do this. TD .find, right? And now these are all the company names. Then you can do the same thing for location. So for location, we did this. Oh, and I need the text. Right, I just want to get the text. Right, so here's all of the location data, right, for one of them. One thing you'll note, like, one thing that's confusing, it looks like they had, this is confusing for multiple reasons. If you look at how many of these things there are, there's 25. And that's confusing because the lab says 15. It's even more confusing because if you count how many are on the page, I think you only count 15, but somehow the HTML displays 25. My guess is there's probably some sort of JavaScript, I guess, hiding, you know, maybe 10 of them. But I would confirm that all these are different, right? We can like kind of confirm these are all different by trying to get the ID of each of them, and then, you know, recognize, and then making sure each of our IDs are unique, right? So this is really the ID right here. So you can kind of get the ID, you know, you can use this ID thing and just remove the everything after the word job. That would work. Or we can use this data JK thing. Let's do the ID. Let's just do it from ID. So how do we do that? We have our TDs, right? So we have all these TDs. We'll get one of them. And we'll do TDs. If we do dot ID, that doesn't work. What if we do square bracket ID? That doesn't work either. Oh, because it's on the A tag, right? It's not on the TD. You see that? It's on the A tag. So for each one of these, so what we need to do is find the A tag. TD square bracket 0. Let's just work with the first one. So here we have our first TD, and we'll do find the A tag. And now this thing has the ID. Dot, and you can do square bracket ID on this. Okay? And this is just a string, so we should be able to split it, right? If we want to. Split on this underscore, and then select the second one. Something like that. Right? There are other ways to do it. But, actually, that's the word job. But this works fine. And now we can just do this same thing again, you know, for TD, what am I doing? For TD in TDs. TD, find the A tag, get the ID, split it, select the second element, right? And then here's all of our IDs. And then from here, I want to make sure that, basically what I'm curious about is, do I get 25 because maybe some of my elements are like duplicating, you know, like maybe this information's shown up twice. So we can just make sure each of these IDs is unique, and just, you know, check the length, essentially. So there's 25 here, and then if we look at our original, this thing, there's 25 there. So it looks like each of these are unique. All right. Let me just see if there's a question. Yeah, so I am recording this. All right, so how do we do this? Again, we're like, okay, we have this whole page, right? We want to narrow it down. So we look for a way to just capture the entire list, right? Which is, you know, you could use this mosaic job cards, or you can, you know, this UL is very descriptive, right? Once you get here, then you want to capture, you know, this information, okay? And then we just select one element. That was like our one TD, that was our like first TD. And you just get to work on this. And the way that you get to work on it is it's a lot easier to find this information in the web page, right? So you kind of, you know, what I would do is inspect here. Like for instance, if I want to get the rating, you know, inspect the rating, and it looks like we have this span of rating number. And then from here, the first word, we could get the ARIA label here, or we could get the, you know, the span underneath and just get the text, I guess. So you just do first TD. Now that I see it, I'm going to do look for a span with a class of rating number. Defined, right? You have to, just to point out, we're at the TD level. We're right here. We need to find the child element, right? So we start here and we call it dot find, right? So first TD dot find a span with let me highlight it again, inspect, with a class of rating numbers, right? So I'm just going up one until I find something descriptive, class of rating number. And then from here, I can probably call .text, and that gives me the rating number, right? Because it's like all this stuff, but the only thing that's text is right here, this part. So if I call .text, then it gives me it, you know, and then from there you can turn it into an integer or whatever. right? So we did it for one, and then you just move on to do it for all of them. All right, so for TD in TDs, TD for each of the TDs, find the span, get the rating number, get the text. And we'll see, maybe some of them, yeah. See, what's happening here is some of these things don't have a rating number. So it's finding nothing, and then we're calling text on none, right? So we'd have to write like an if else statement, right? But this is the world of scraping. Okay, let's ask some questions about this. It could be anything about it. It really is this back and forth between like viewing the page and then translating that into code. This is one of the reasons why I like scraping, is because it forces you to like go between code and the problem, right, that you're trying to solve constantly. Right? The bad part about it is sometimes like it's not as consistent as an API oftentimes. All right, questions about this? Anything you want to go through?
Is there a good way to get around websites that basically they render all of their HTML in JavaScript?
Yeah,
So
that would be Selenium.
Selenium, yeah.
Yeah. So with Selenium, it literally you can it's almost like having a mouse, right? You can like select elements and then click, right? So we'll show that. I don't think we'll show it today, but Selenium is the way to go with something like that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other questions? All right. So I'll post this. Let's take